जो लीक कर रहा है ये सब? Is it you, Shaan?
Hotstar Specials presents The Night Manager Part 2 30 June से सिर्फ DisneyPlus Hotstar
Firstly, a warm welcome to you on filmeshilmy.com and tamne huge congratulations Night Manager Season 2 mate. I mean, I think it's so wonderful to see another wonderful Gujarati filmmaker emerge. So I'm very happy to sort of be in conversation with you.
Thank you, Anuj. I'm very happy, and you've touched a raw nerve in my heart by speaking Gujarati. मैंने बहुत गम से to speak to more fellow Gujaratis and everyone across the world.
Right. Well, look, I think season 2, the war to end Shelly Rungta's arms empire gets a lot tougher, I think, this time around. So I think as a filmmaker, what helped you to increase this intensity?
I think I had a safety net, a blueprint. It's it's one of the masterpieces by John le Carré called The Night Manager. It's a book on which we have based it on. And then we had one more version of it by David Farr, who made it back in Britain. And if we were still lost, we had the most prolific spy writer of our country, Sridhar Raghavan, who's written the show, who's done Pathan and War. I think this was the easiest one. I think the joy with Sridhar is, I would say, Sridhar, I think this one needs more stakes. And he would say, okay, how many? Should I give you 3? And I would say, okay, calm down. I'm just saying maybe we need something more. And he would, but he's, I think the amount of talent associated on the show, Anuj, is exemplary. I think it's not the creatives which were difficult on this. And the tough thing was to keep the flock together, to keep them all under the same vision, to see it the same way as the way I did. Yeah, because if you see, we had Ben Jasper from Australia. We had Kshitij Kankaria, who's at that time based out of Paris, was designing clothes. For the first time, he's not a film fashion guy. He's actually absolutely hardcore fashion, So for him to come on board, we had Anaita, we had Sridhar. I think our music team is 2 of the Mavericks from down south from the country. So it's been a challenge to first yearn to get the best from the world, but then now that they are there, how to keep them together and get them to express themselves the way you want.
Right. I think it's quite ironic because both Arya and Night Manager are adaptations of international shows. So tell me, when it does come to tailoring this for an Indian audience, because there's a certain sentimentality, a certain mindset that one needs to encompass, what factors do you consider as a filmmaker?
I think I only know myself. I don't know India. Anyone who thinks they know the audiences is really living in a bubble. The audiences in India are so varied, so diverse. But I understand culturally what ticks off, what is the tick that I enjoy? What is the emotion that I enjoy? What is the thrill that I enjoy? So when I look at a story, I think I use my lens of the years of living in India, of being an Indian. What are the things that trigger me? What are the things that I enjoy? And take these things and just find the right way to look at a story. So the cultural resonance is something very important for me. I keep saying that if a show feels too Western and it doesn't feel like it belongs from the soil of this country, we shouldn't adapt it. When you take a Shakespeare and you adapt it to India, do it like a Vishal Bharadwaj. Otherwise, don't do it.
Or even Bansali, what he did with Ram Leela. I mean, that was
Yeah,
such a
yeah,
good
yeah.
tribute.
I think great reference point. So I feel adaptations are great as long as you found the sur of the audiences and the local flavors of it. If you get those right, you get the cultural nuance right and the rooting right. I think it flies. It takes a life of its own.
Right. I think another thing as well about the contents, I mean, again, not to reference Arya, but it's quite interesting because Tanger, Sushmita Sen, no ek navo roop joano melu as an actor. And even if we look at Anil Kapoor here, we've seen him play sort of darkish roles, grey roles before, but we've never seen him play such a ferocious character, I think, in his entire career. And this has definitely given him a very different image as well. So તમે જાણી થઈને આ actors ને choose કરો who are perhaps established but yet have a very undiscovered strand of acting as well. Is that what you look out for specifically in your talents?
I would say I do look for accomplished actors for which fit the part for sure, especially central parts because the audience wants to watch them, right, in a central way, and it ensure the story has a larger reach. But I won't say that there is anything that tells me that anything about an actor is already discovered or not discovered. Like I never, you spoke about Arya. Our approach on Arya was never telling Sushmita to play differently, but to say there are so many versions of Sushmita inside Sushmita Sen. Find the version that resonates closer to the dilemmas and the life that Arya Sareen lives. So what you see Sushmita play is actually a version of herself. When we went to Anil sir for this part, I remember him saying, "Do you want me to play a villain?" I said, "No, sir. I want to find the version of you which resonates with Shelly Rungta. You know, he's in his own life, in his own eyes, he's a hero. It is in my eyes, I'm going to see him as a villain. So it's nothing that you need to do. I'm going to see you in a certain way, right? Everyone's a hero in their own life. So I think I feel everyone has so much more than what they know. And the character calls out to those instincts in you. Like even with Aditya and the tone of character which he's got is so brilliant for the show. And
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan, and I realize that this in a certain way, there are parts of it which are so similar to Aditya Roy Kapur, the man, right? So I'll say that there are it's like slices of a man, slices of a personality. There are multitudes of them, and they're all defined by the writing and the character and the director and the conversations we have about it.
Hmm, hmm. Now, I must say that in all your works, whether it's the short stories you've directed or even written, I feel there's a sense of self-discovery amid a conflict of sorts that's kind of juxtapositioned with the interiors and exteriors. Do you feel that your works perhaps reflect to a large extent, how we were just talking about, perhaps circumstances that you've faced in terms of discovering Sandeep as a person?
That's a very interesting question. So appreciate the question a lot. I think I think every filmmaker yearns to make every film a personal film, and it may be a story of a boy in Sudan, but I'll try to find Sandeep and his world and his ethos in it. The worldview has to have something about you as a filmmaker somewhere. So I'm quite intrigued by human beings as a species. I find them immensely deep, immensely complicated. And I find the same person in the same circumstance will not behave the same way. On a call with Anuj, Sandeep will react in a certain way now, but exactly after 2 minutes, Sandeep's reaction will change. So I'm quite intrigued by the human species and the way we think and the way we behave, how our thoughts are different from our actions and our inner conflicts. I'm quite driven by that. I quite enjoy trying to uh, put that forth on screen. So I think I've never given a thought, but maybe that's a theme, and I'm happy if a part of Sandeep remains with everything that I create, because that's the idea. You have to leave a mark behind.
And again, specifically, not again to reference both the shows, but if you look at Sushmita's character and even Aditya's initially in The Night Manager season one, there's that sense of them being plummeted into a world that's way beyond uh what they're used to, right? Like, I mean, Sushmita's literally forced to take over this whole little gang empire in a way to defend her family. And then obviously Aditya is there to sort of uncover this very dreaded arms menace that's there, which is obviously Anil Kapoor's character. So do you kind of feel that there's been a point in your life as well where perhaps you've, I mean, obviously not to that extent, I hope, but obviously have really been plummeted into a very dark space that's beyond your reach, and you've had to really cope with that. What would that incident be in your life, do you think?
I think there was a personal phase where I had mapped out my whole life, and I had decided that here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop out of engineering, and I'm going to go and assist a few filmmakers, go to film school, and I'm going to write a script, and an actor's going to like it, a producer's going to green light it, a studio will come on board, and voila, I'll be a director. And I reached almost the last step, and suddenly everything came undone. And for 3 years of my life, I was in the darkest phase. I didn't know what was I doing. I didn't know how else to do it. This is the only dream I had. And I think at that point, I decided to deconstruct myself because I couldn't see any other way. The only way I knew this dream could happen, I'd already tried it, and it turned out to be a dead end eventually. And I started back by breaking myself down. And I think I started asking for work. I started assisting again. I started going back to how I'd started my journey 10 years back. Uh, I used to go to random weddings, yeah, Anuj. I used to go to random weddings and shoot weddings for people. I would
Nice.
I would do things uh, which gave me a lot of humility, but understanding that there's no there's no single definition of what it means to be a filmmaker. And I said, how how dare the system stop me from expressing myself? And that's where one of the ideas that came up was the idea of making a Marathi film, Chumbak, the story of two
Yeah.
Marathi boys. And Chumbak was born out of that phase of my life. And I said, I'm going to break every single norm that I have built around me, every single shackle that didn't allow me to make a film in its first place. So yeah, it was a dark phase, I would say, but it was also a very inspiring phase for me. I could find strength again at that point, at my lowest time. I remember at some point, and it wasn't just dark on a career point of view. It was dark on many fronts, personally, financially. You were lost as a soul for those 3 years. But I think it's not about what happens to a man when he falls. It's about how does he get up. And I've always found that in my heroes. I'm going to reference Night Manager again for me.
Mm.
Uh, why I think Shaan Sengupta is my hero, not because he messes up and a girl dies because of him. He messes up and he gives out the information of where exactly the girl is. Despite being an ex-soldier, he messes up because the mess up makes him human. But the fact he decides to fight back and find the man and take and extract revenge makes him a hero. So I think this is the understanding of human psyche, which probably I have observed. My filmmaking is more observed than taught. Even though I've been to film school, it's my observation of human life and the people around me and their everyday struggles that really inspire me.
Mm. Right, and I think it is that whole underdog theme, which again I think really does stand out. I think in a lot of your works as well. I'm glad you talked about your influences because there is a very raw and gripping feel in all of your content. And obviously I know you've worked with Ram Madhwani quite a lot, and I think Ram, if we look at Neerja as well, like it was a very raw film, which was very gripping as well. So not just him, but what else would you say has influenced your perhaps gripping and slow burning storytelling?
I think the influences on me are actually quite varied. I I started off my first film, I would say, that made me want to quit engineering was actually Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam.
Oh
I
wow.
and it was such a mainstream Hindi film, and I remember going to a cinema hall in Mumbai and watching the film, and I said, this is amazing. The feeling the film is leaving me with is beautiful. And I went back and I started really tripping on Hindi cinema of that time. And this was 99, 98, 99. There was Company and Satya, and these became
Okay.
my go-to films. I remember when I wrote for an entrance exam for film school, they asked me which one's your favorite film across the world, and people were writing films from Adul Gopalakrishnan, Satyajit Ray, and I said Company and Satya, and I thought they were going to reject me, and actually they rejected me the first time, but the second time again I persisted. Again I wrote the same answer. I said I'm going to be truthful. That's the film I love at that point of time, and I don't want to be somebody who's going to lie just to belong to a particular place. Uh, I think what I've realized is my cinema is quite middle of the road. I I I enjoy entertaining people. I'm never shy of it. And yet at the same time, I like it if there is a certain therav to the work. There's a certain holding back. Let the people discover the emotion rather than being told how to feel the emotion. So I say it's neither completely away from the entertaining mainstream radar, and yet it's not an absolute hardcore entertaining radar that I work in. I fall somewhere right in the middle.
Hmm.
So
Right.
I would say Rakesh Om Prakash Mehra, I really enjoyed working with him as an assistant, and big influence to my work and Rang De Basanti and all his work there.
What a
Uh,
film. Wow.
Vishal Bhardwaj, um, Ashutosh Gowarikar, Ram Madhwani. I think Ram Madhwani brought a lot of realism to my work. The way he approached it, and working with him really changed me. He's one of my last few mentors, and I really look forward to every conversation with him to just see the kind of approach he has to cinema. And then it's all there inside. And then once you approach a story, it comes from instinct. But I heard a very good quote. Instinct is actually a sum of all experiences.
Right.
Instinct is nothing but that. So I would say my instinct is formed by all the cinema that I've seen and all the people I've admired and worked with eventually.
Mhm. Right. Well, look, we're running out of time, so I've got one cello massive question here. So brace yourself, Sandeep. Okay. So number one, the first part of the question is that you're transitioning from, well, you have already anyway, from independent, making films, short films, and doing all of that to mainstream cinema now. So I think, given all your experiences, the dark place that you visited, the rawness, your observations, how tough is it to retain that rawness and curiosity while balancing the commercial side of cinema? Part one. And the part two, એટલા સરસ web series તમે બનાવ્યા છે, Gujarati content ક્યારે બનાવશો? That's the second part of the question.
Okay, I'll take the second one first. I think I always believed કે જે સ્ટોરી હોય ને, સ્ટોરી ડિફાઇન કરે કે કઈ લેંગ્વેજમાં એ સ્ટોરીને તમારે કહેવું જોઈએ. Stories, like when I made the Marathi film, I could relate to these two characters and their journey because I could understand that these people speak Marathi. Now, Marathi is not my first language, but I said I'll have to brush up on it and understand it well because that's the language the characters speak. If you make a film set in Gujarat but the characters speak Hindi, it's the most unusual thing because they should talk the language which they are comfortable with. I understand that there are some Hindi speaking people in Gujarat too. I completely get it. But a character should speak the language the character wants. And that is how you define what is the language of a film. You don't do it by the commercial reasons. So far, I have really struggled with stories that I felt belongs to a Gujarati character. The day I have it, I'll fight tooth and nail to try to make it in Gujarati for sure. Chokas karisu. Uh,
Right.
Talking of the transition to and the balance between the independent voice and commercial cinema, look, it is very tough. You're right, it is extremely tough. But the way I look at it is that people at this point are coming in to watch the commercial stuff, and they're not coming in to watch my film. When they come in, they come to watch The Night Manager. Slowly and surely, I'll sneak in my independent stuff. Slowly, Safina in The Night Manager is me trying to tell them, this is me, this is how I want you to see it. A girl in conflict, a 14-year-old child bride. and her world, and she's still full of spunk. She's not a beaten down victim. She's while she's victimized, but she's not a victim. The way she sees herself, she's a fighter. These are the small battles I fight. I pick these small battles and ensure that all across I spread the voice of mine in each scene, in a small dialogue somewhere, a shot somewhere, a moment somewhere, but largely the theme of everything I do. The theme of everything I do has to reflect the kind of person we are as filmmakers and the kind of ethos you want to put forth to the world. So that's been the attempt. That's how I hope I continue balancing it. But yeah, it's a tough one.
And night manager પછી શું આપણે look forward કરી શકીએ તમારું કામમાં?
Well, there's a bunch of stories I'm working on. Let's see which one kicks off first. There's an excellent script which I'm working with Dharma Productions and Karan Johar with for a film. I hope it fructifies soon and we get to show it to you, the audiences, soon.
Oh, wow, that's such good news. Well, look, I mean, it's so wonderful to hear this, Sandeep, and I think it's very much a moment of pride for us to see such wonderful filmmakers like that emerge, that too from our cultural backdrop and the same language we speak. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing The Night Manager on DisneyPlus Hotstar. And a huge congratulations, and cannot wait to catch up with you super soon. Thank you so much for joining me on Filme Shilmy. Thank you.
Thank you, Aruj. Pleasure's all mine. Really had a great chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you.